Hello and welcome to today's presentation on control. I am Dr. TJ at iMolecular. The question is, what can I do when I can't control things? Now this is a very interesting question because control is somewhat of a subjective phenomenon. A lot of times what happens in life is we are presented with information. Oftentimes it's negative information. Maybe somebody sends us an email or a text message, or they tell us something directly. And we start to perceive things about the information that we are presented with. And when we start to perceive these things, our mind frequently goes to the worst case scenario. While our mind is going in all of these directions and going to the worst case scenario, our body starts to have a physiological response. Cortisol and epinephrine are going to be released from our adrenal glands. This is going to increase our heart rate. It might cause some shortness of breath or dizziness or lightheadedness. Our muscles might get tense. We might start to get an upset stomach or start to feel nauseous. All of this happens when the sympathetic nervous system, which is a branch of the autonomic nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for our fight, flight, or freeze response. This is where we start to feel anxious or even panicked. Now, on some level, there is a normal experience of negativity. There's a normal level of anxiety and a normal level of panic that we all experience in our day-to-day lives. But when we are presented with information that feels overwhelming or that feels hopeless or puts us in a state of distress, there are a couple of things that we can do. The first thing, assess the situation and the dynamics. Maybe this means that you take a break, you excuse yourself, you displace yourself from the situation. If you're by yourself, maybe you take a couple minutes, close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and start to process the information. And be honest with yourself. Sometimes our brain likes to take us, again, as I was saying earlier, our brain likes to take us to the worst places. But really be honest with yourself and think, what's good about this? What's bad about this? What is manageable? Look at who the people are that are involved in the situation. Are you dealing with a tough personality? Are you dealing with a tough situation? So really assess those dynamics. Probably one of the most difficult problems that we all face is dealing with personalities that are rigid. This might be a family member or someone in the workplace, but being able to understand the other person's personality and how they function can really go a long way. So number one, assess the dynamics and the situation, all the parts of it. Look at it from a complete perspective. Be honest. Don't be afraid to figure out a plan and to find out what's positive. I think sometimes too, we're afraid to see the good in things because we are so programmed to respond to the negative and just really awfulize things. Well, the thing is you can't sink any lower than the bottom. So once you've hit the bottom, there's only one place to go, which is up, unless you're just going to stay in constant cycles on the bottom, which some people do. They just ruminate and ruminate and ruminate. But we don't want to do that. Now, the next point is make a decision about how you're going to manage the situation. And ultimately, this is where your power resides. How are you going to respond? And this can sometimes require a delicate balance. How you respond to the situation might also be, where is the situation occurring? Is it at home? Is it in the workplace? Because that's going to change the dynamics. How you respond to something at home is not going to be the same way that you respond to something at work. So really think about how you're going to manage the situation. and then have a plan of action. Now, I'll give you an example from my own life. A couple years ago, I had a family member that basically developed a disease. And so it was a hard situation because, one, the person had a disease and they had to manage the disease. And then two, I was there supporting that person. And I had to make a decision that I was going to get up every day and live my life as normal and find something good about every day. Now, the person who had the disease also decided that we were going to live as normal as possible and just work our way through it. And so I had to, again, be there to support the person, and I tried to do, extra nice things, be supportive, be caring, offer to listen if they needed to talk, be extra affectionate, and do those types of things. But we knew that at some point in time, the situation was going to come to an end, and we didn't know what that outcome was going to be. So it really challenged me, and I know that it challenged the other person, because we had to take one day at a time, one step at a time to get through it. So it challenged us, but our power in that situation was deciding how we were going to respond to the situation and how we were going to respond to life every single day. And eventually the situation blew over and everything turned out fine, and the person is now healthy, which is great. So again, your power lies in how are you going to manage the situation. Maybe you're dealing with a difficult person, and maybe you're dealing with a difficult boss at work. You can always find effective ways to manage those individuals. Open up communication, try different ways of responding to them, ask questions, and really open up the relationship and that dynamic. That can sometimes go a long way. So again, a plan of action. How are you going to move through this process? What are the steps that you're going to take? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Now, the thing is you might actually make decisions and have a plan of action, and then you confront the people and the situation, and then things turn out to be totally different from what you expected. And hopefully they turn out better than what you expected. But having that plan can help your mind to stop ruminating on the information so much. So make sure you've got a plan, and maybe you even verbalize your plan to someone to say, this is how I'm going to handle it. It's also important to be able to talk to people about things to get other people's perspective on the situation. That might offer us some relief, and it might also give us a different perspective and a way to consider how we might do things differently. So the moral of the story is control what you can, even if that only means yourself. And I know that sounds cliche, but really when you do it in those situations, you start to develop a different level of meaning about controlling what you can. Have a plan and have a goal. Take the steps to work the plan and achieve the goal, whatever that might be, right? Maybe it's just the goal of getting to the other side of the situation. So with my sick family member, our goal was to get to the other side of the situation and get healthy. Maybe you have a deadline or a project at work, and you need to navigate that situation and get to that deadline, whatever it is. But again, have a plan. How are you going to manage your day-to-day life? How are you going to manage the people and the personalities? You can only control yourself. And because you have control over yourself, you can set positive and reasonable goals to move forward and to create something better for yourself. And I cannot stress that enough. Because in life, there are going to be other people out there that are awfulizing things just like you might be, but you can break away from that and you can create something better. At some point, you have to let go of what you cannot control and make good decisions for yourself. And that's very true, because we are always going to encounter people and things that we cannot control, but we can make a decision about how we're going to control ourselves, how we are going to think, and how we are going to feel, and we can make decisions to move on to a better tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching.